Hey everybody, thanks for tuning back into OTRAM's YouTube channel. We get a lot of Land Cruisers that come through here for pre-purchase inspections after somebody's already bought them. And then we go through them and find lots of repairs that need to be done. So I figured we'd do a video on what we generally look for so that people can look for problems before they buy the truck instead of after. So today we've got a 9380 series in the shop. So figure we'll start on the top in the engine bay and then move down underneath. So we pop the hood. The first thing that jumps out on this is somebody's left the check engine light jumper wire in. I'm not sure why, but that doesn't bode well. Doesn't bode well for the truck. So we're just going to go ahead and take that out and close that up. Somebody's also on this one rewrapped the engine harness, and they've rewrapped over by the EGR valve with heat insulation, which these a lot of times will burn through the wiring harness over there and short out injectors and start driving funny. So if the repair was done right, that's actually a good sign that somebody's been in there. If it's not so well done, it could be a problem down the road. But without opening it up, there's no real way of telling. And then we just kind of generally look over hose condition. Like this upper radiator hose looks new. But back here, you can see the heater hoses are all still original. And the heater control valve is no longer black. It's starting to turn this brownish color. A lot of times when they start getting this color, they're getting really close to breaking. So I would probably change that as preventative maintenance. We've already had this truck up in the air once, and we went and looked at the pesky heater hose underneath. It's also original and starting to bulge. So, you know, we'd want to look at replacing that as well. And then as we were walking around, this one, the ground wire down here is broken and was unplugged. And let's snap it back together. And then this emissions hose was popped off of its fitting and just laying down. So go ahead and snap that back in. And then somebody over here on the battery has done some pretty bad splicing in here, I guess to replace the fusible links. I'm not sure what they're really going for, but that should be cleaned up. When we had the hood down, you can see that this has had a lot of body work and paint work on the hood and all the way down the driver's side. And it wasn't well done. And then you can see, if you look down here in the battery box, you can see where this has been hammered back straight. So at some point, this fender's been curled over and the core support and everything's been repainted. Again, if the repair was done well, probably not a huge deal. This one doesn't look like it was done well, so you may have rust issues, Bondo popping issues further down the line. And then we always pop the oil cap. Look for any sign of the white death inside there, if a head gasket's got a slow leak. Check the oil level. Make sure the oil's, topped up and a decent color, that it's not just sludge in there. Same thing with the automatic transmission. You want it running in neutral when you check it. But you just want to make sure that it's a nice cherry red color and doesn't look like maple syrup, and that the level's right. We go through and we've got a moisture content tester that we check the brake fluid with. Most people aren't going to have that, so you just want to look and make sure it's not super brown. This stuff tested as full of moisture on the meter, so it needs to be flushed. Let me grab a paper towel. A big one on these, power steering fluid. If you dip it on here, it's kind of a clearish brown color. It should be red. It should be Dexron ATF, but everybody puts power steering fluid in them, and that seems to be what eats the seals on the pumps and the boxes. So look for red power steering fluid, because nobody ever puts the right fluid in them. Check the radiator. This one's odd. The reservoir is over full, but the radiator is low. So either the radiator cap's not working right, or there's a slow leak somewhere in the system that's letting air pull back in instead of it drawing coolant. So you want to look at that. You want to look at your belts and your hoses. These look as though they've been done recently. You want to check them, around the valve cover. They're notorious for leaking on the 80s. And then the distributor O-ring, which is inside here, but it'll be wet down underneath the distributor if it's leaking. That's a big leak on the 80. And then down, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. Let me grab a light. Right down here, the oil pump cover, there's an O-ring. There's an O-ring back behind this piece. Those are really common to leak, and when they do, it coats the whole underside of the truck in oil. So it's hard to tell exactly where a lot of the leaks are coming from. Usually that's our starting point. If it's at all wet, we start there with repairs. We'll fix that and then clean everything up and see if it leaks anywhere else. And then you just want to look over like general condition. Are things rusty? Have things been beat on? Are there gobs of silicone sealer everywhere? Just has it been well maintained? This one on the hood, you can see from where the wreck was that they didn't fix the underside, so it's starting to rust from the bottom side of the hood. Just things like that. Just look and see if anything just looks generally out of place. Because I've seen some really weird fixes over the years. But that's pretty much it for under the hood. And we'll put this thing up in the air and bring you back, and we'll show you what we look for underneath. Okay, so we've got it back up in the air now. At the used car lot or somebody's house, you're probably not going to be able to put it up in the air. But you're going to want to at least try to jack it up. Check the wheel bearings. These, when you shake it, you can feel a little bit of play. This side's not horrible. The passenger side has quite a bit of play to it. So it's, you'd want to repack the wheel bearings and adjust them, if not altogether replace them. And then the rear on an 80 series is full float. So you can check, same thing. And the rears are also loose on this one. And it's missing a lug nut, or a lug stud rather. They're probably not going to let you pull the wheels off. But you can look in through the spokes and see the rotors. These have been recently done. They're nice and shiny, smooth, without any real crazy grooves in them. The only thing, the problem is these were done, at least in the front, with very poor quality rotors. And in the 2 weeks this guy's had it, they've already warped. So, yeah. They can look good, but test drive it, make sure the brake doesn't pulse while you're out on the road. And then just slide underneath, check your pinion seals for leaks. Grab your U-joints. This upper U-joint's got some play in it. I don't know if you can hear it. And on an 80, because they're all-wheel drive, you need to have at least one tire off the ground to check for play, because otherwise the driveline still has load on it. But you can see this one's leaking somewhere back here. While you're underneath, check your exhaust. and mostly check the flanges because those seem to rot the worst. And you're going to check where the oxygen sensors plug in, which is really hard to see on this one because they're on the top, but they'll rot out and cause you issues. And then same thing, look for pinion seal leaks up front. You can see we've got a ton of oil coming down on the engine, which a lot of that is probably that front oil pump cover seal. It looks like this driver's side shock is blown out because it's wet all the way from up under the boot. Look at that. You want to look at the knuckles. These are pretty dry. A lot of times it's normal to see some caked on grease here. When you've got fluid dripping out the bottom, you know it's time to do a knuckle service, replace the interaxle seal and the wipers and bearings. So yeah, just give everything a good look over. Again, make sure nothing looks out of the ordinary. And you can see a better view of the oil pump cover gasket. It's this one up here that's weeping. And if that's left to go long enough, it ends up slinging oil on the radiator hoses, and then the radiator hoses get swollen and soft. So you'll want to replace those. I think that's about it. Check the paper clip, the power steering cooler up here. They like to rust out, and they're really expensive to replace. I think like $500 last time I checked one. We usually just do an aftermarket transmission cooler. And just look at the frame, look for rust. The 80 series don't seem to have a lot of rust issues, at least not the ones we see here in Virginia. But, look them over. Look over the tie rod boots. Just make sure, everything looks normal. But yeah, that's pretty much what we look for when we go over an 80 series for pre-purchase inspection. We pull the wheels off and actually check the condition of the brake pads and check for run out on the rotors. But a used car lot's probably not going to let you do that, so we'll leave that off. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting. Hope it helps you out looking for an 80. If you liked it, please subscribe below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.